Welcome, I'm the White Reaper. Here in this dark corner of YouTube, we explore tales of horror that defy reason, paranormal stories that will chill the blood, and mysteries you'd rather not solve. Because who hasn't felt that chill when they hear a creak in the hallway or see a figure in the corner of their room? Well, I don't just tell stories, we live them. Each video is a door to the unknown, a journey into the depths of your fears. And you, dear community, are an essential part of this journey. Your comments, your theories, and your own experiences are what make this channel unique and alive. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any story. Thank you for being part of this community. Now, turn off the lights, turn up the volume, and get ready, because the night has only just begun. Deep in the Sierra de la Vera, hidden among thick forests and almost forgotten paths, stood a small wooden hut known in the village as La Cabana del Silencio. It was not the result of supernatural legends, but the scene of real events and shocking testimonies of a family that suffered such devastating psychological manipulation that it left indelible scars in the collective memory. It all began in the late 1980s, when police documents and survivor statements came to light, revealing the existence of Don Miguel Roldan, a man of respectable appearance and a prominent figure in the rural community. Behind his facade of dignity and benevolence, there was a being obsessed with absolute control, capable of transforming a home into an invisible prison. In that remote cabin, Don Miguel subjected his family to a regime of psychological terror, using fear as an instrument to break the will and mold his loved ones according to his twisted vision. Marina Paredes, a young journalist and researcher with a combative spirit, was personally attracted to the dark story. Indirect daughter of one of those who had survived Don Miguel's methods, Marina saw in that chronicle of horror the opportunity to unearth long-buried truths. With the determination of someone who knows that facing the past is the only way to free it, she undertook the journey to the mountains, convinced that in La Cabana del Silencio was hidden the key to understanding the magnitude of a real evil. The journey was made along dirt roads lined with holm oak and oak groves, where the natural beauty contrasted with the heavy atmosphere that seemed to announce misfortunes. As he moved deeper into the forest, the shadows lengthened eerily, and the murmur of the wind to the leaves recited forgotten names. Every crack under her feet made her feel like something or someone was watching her from the other side of time. Upon arriving at the cabin, Marina was greeted by a desolate image. The structure, with the splintered boards and broken windows, seemed to have been abandoned for decades. However, the remains of personal belongings and documents scattered in the corner of the main room suggested that not long ago the place had been the scene of an unimaginable horror. With a tape recorder and notebook in hand, Marina set out to walk through each room, aware that every corner could hide forgotten secrets. In a room hidden behind a threadbare curtain, he found an old diary that had belonged to Elisa, Don Miguel's youngest daughter. The yellowed pages narrated with heartbreaking crudeness the methods of control to which the family was subjected. Elisa wrote, with trembling handwriting, how every word, every look, was used to instill terror and destroy any hint of rebellion. Obedience becomes an invisible chain. Read one of the most moving entries. Their accounts not only revealed episodes of abuse, but also showed how the power of fear had been used to erase the identity of those who inhabited the hut. Along her journey, Marina found more evidence. Black and white photographs of faces marked by resignation, scattered letters in which episodes of re-education were recounted, and documents that narrated the strict regime of silence imposed in the home. A file dated 1987 recounted how any hint of disobedience was punished with a deafening silence, where every whisper became an inescapable sentence. A former servant, in statements collected by the police, had stated, "Silence was the cruelest punishment because it was a constant reminder of the submission that Don Miguel had imposed on us." The atmosphere in the cabin was oppressive. Despite the apparent stillness, Marina felt that the place was breathing, charged with dark energy that manifested itself in inexplicable noises and the constant sensation of being observed. That night, while staying in a small adjoining room, the researcher could barely sleep. In the hallway, diffuse shadows seemed to slip slowly, as if they were memories that refused to die, and the distant echo of children's voices echoed in the overwhelming silence. Determined to get answers, Marina contacted Joaquin, an elderly neighbor who had witnessed the horrors that occurred in the cabin during the 80s. In a small cafeteria in a nearby town, Joaquin recounted the darkest episodes in a trembling voice full of bitterness. Don Miguel was not a monster legend. He was a real man who exploited the weaknesses of his own blood, he confessed. He used fear to control, and when it takes root in the soul, it becomes a destructive force that nothing can stop. Joaquin's words, full of pain, drew the portrait of a man who had destroyed the essence of his loved ones, leaving an open wound in the community. Among the testimonies and documents, Marina discovered an old recording in which Elisa's pleas were heard. The young woman's childish and broken voice begged for mercy in the midst of a silence that seemed to absorb every cry. "I can't breathe without feeling the weight of every forbidden word," was heard in a whisper, making the terror tingle. That recording became a permanent echo in Marina's mind, reminding her that the horror experienced in La Cabana del Silencio was much more than isolated episodes of abuse. It was a reflection of manipulation as subtle as it was devastating, which had marked entire generations. With each new piece of evidence, the investigator understood that the evil perpetrated in the cabin transcended physical abuse. Don Miguel's influence extended to every corner of the house, to every imposed silence and every look of resignation. The psychological manipulation he had exercised over his family was so profound that he had managed to erase identities and banish the possibility of rebellion. The terror he had instilled was not visible to the naked eye, but it was palpable in the air, like a poison that seeped into the very essence of those who lived under his yoke. The climax of the investigation came on a rainy night, when Marina decided to go back into the cabin, convinced that there was still something hidden within its walls. With flashlight in hand and heart pounding, he headed towards a room where the re-education sessions were held. The atmosphere was frigid in the air, permeated with humidity and mold, seemed to whisper forgotten names. As his eyes swept around the room, he noticed a mural on one of the walls hidden behind a thick layer of mold. The words, almost erased by time, read, "Silence is eternal. The truth is hidden in every unheard cry." At that precise moment, a slight sound made her spin. At the end of a dark corridor, a shadow moved slowly, as if to guide her to a long-buried secret. With her heart racing, Marina followed that ephemeral figure that seemed to vanish between the corners of the cabin. The shadow led her to a hidden room, where she found a set of documents confirming Don Miguel's abuses. Among them, a letter addressed to a court described, in chilling detail, episodes of psychological abuse, emotional blackmail, and rituals that were intended to purify the family of all weakness. Every word written was a sentence, and the weight of truth threatened to overwhelm the researcher's mind. In that instant, Marina felt an overwhelming mixture of terror and compassion. The voices of the victims, silenced by fear, seemed to echo on the walls, demanding justice and liberation. The hut, a mute witness to those horrors, was transformed into a sanctuary of painful memories, where every creak and whisper of the wind evoked the suffering of those who had inhabited that place. With tears in her eyes, Marina knelt on the cold floor, aware that she was facing a truth so raw that it seemed almost unreal. At dawn, with the documentation in hand, Marina left La Cabana del Silencio. The echo of silenced voices and the inescapable presence of a traumatic past would accompany her forever, but she knew that telling that story was an inescapable duty. He published a report that shocked society, revealing the dark psychological manipulation exercised in that cabin and opening old wounds in a community that he preferred to forget. The hut ceased to be simply a deteriorated building to become a symbol of the destructive power of fear and the silence imposed by oppression. The repercussion was immediate. Former survivors dared to break the silence that had imprisoned them for so long, and the authorities reopened long-archived investigations. The story of Don Miguel Roldan and the horrors experienced in La Cabana del Silencio showed that true terror does not lie in apparitions or supernatural forces, but in the ability of human beings to destroy their own through emotional manipulation. Each testimony, each document, was irrefutable proof of how fear can become a lethal weapon. As time went on, the hut became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking to understand the boundary between pain and redemption. Some claimed that on full moon nights murmurs of ancient confessions could be heard, while others visited the site to pay tribute to bravery of Marina, whose determination had succeeded in lighting a light in the midst of so much darkness. The Cabin of Silence, with its shadows and suffocating atmosphere, thus stood as an indelible reminder that real horror is what hides behind appearances, in the manipulation of the mind and complicit silence of society that prefers to forget. The legacy of that terrible episode lived on in the collective memory. Marina Paredes' experience marked a before and after in her personal and professional life, prompting her to continue denouncing those injustices that, by remaining in oblivion, allow evil to be renewed again and again. The story of La Cabana del Silencio, with all its rawness and pain, became a call to action to confront the traumas of the past and prevent them from repeating themselves in the future. Today, while the wind blows through the trees of the Sierra de la Vera and the murmur of the forest continues to tell stories, La Cabana del Silencio remains a silent witness to the horrors of psychological manipulation. Those who listen to Chronicle know that it is not a fantastic tale, but a real tragedy, where the real monster was not a shadow of another world, but dark human nature when carried away by the power of fear. And so, in the perpetual echo of each whisper, it is reminded that the only way to combat horror is to make the truth shine with the light of memory and justice.